Hey guys, it's Kevin again. This is going to be another Christmas movie review for you guys, and this time this is probably going to be one of the most controversial reviews, I have to say, because the movie I'm going to be reviewing, you guys probably see it does not say rant, and you guys probably like, what? Why doesn't it say rant? Well, let me talk about why. First of all, this is going to be my review for the final chapter of the Santa Claus series. This time that is Santa Claus 3: The Escape Clause. Now, I know what you guys are gonna say. Why don't you hate this movie? Why don't you hate it? Why doesn't it say rant? Because guys, I don't hate this movie. I think this is a good movie. It is worse than the second one, I will definitely say that. It actually has some things that improve from the second one. There are a lot of things I like about this one. It's a lot like the second one. You know, the second one, there are a lot of things I like about it, and the third one has a lot of things I like about it, but it has definitely a lot more problems than the third one did. And, than the second one did, and it is the weakest of the franchise. However, I don't hate this movie. I don't. And again, I've watched it just as much as the Santa Claus and the Santa Claus 2. And I still really do like this movie. But let me talk about why I like this movie so much. First of all, I saw this movie in theaters. So, I don't care what you're saying. Why the hell did you see it in theaters? Because there was nothing else to see in theaters when I saw this movie. But I saw it in theaters back in 2006 actually. It wasn't 2007, it was 2006. And, basically, I saw it then, and as I said, I don't think this is a terrible movie. Now, I don't actually think the central plot of this movie has to do with the escape clause. I think the actual plot of this movie is basically this. Basically, this time we focus on Scott and Carol, and basically, Carol is expecting a baby, and she is, it seems like she's about to go into labor. It's a false alarm and everything. I like the movie starts with that because it gets us right into, okay, this is what we're going to deal with, this is what the story's going to be. And I think it's well done they do that. I think it's good that they did that. I thought that was good. But basically, Carol is missing out on stuff. She misses her family being there with her. Because, of course, when someone has a baby, they want their entire family to be there. So Scott comes up with this idea to bring her family, bring her parents, Sylvia and Bud, up to the North Pole, along with, and also Laura, Neil, and Lucy come to the North Pole to keep her company, and we kind of have a family reunion going on. And I think the movie's actually kind of about Scott being too committed to things. He wants to be able to be committed to his family and his job at the same time, and he simply can't. And this movie explores it very well. Now, the other plot, of course, has to do with Jack Frost. Jack Frost is up to no good. He is now part of the council of, the part of that council of Mother Nature and Father Time are in. And he has been making a lot of trouble trying to upstage Santa, and for this, Scott decides to give him the job of assisting him, and assisting the elves, basically. But Jack Frost has another plan. His plan is to sabotage, Santa Claus completely, and basically get the escape clause, which basically, if Scott says, I wish I'd never been Santa at all, then someone else can put on the code, and they become Santa, and that's basically what the plot of this movie is. Now let me say something about this movie. The central plot with him inviting Carol's parents and trying to make his best impression, which, by the way, I must say, we find out there's something in this movie called The Secret of Santa. Basically, Secret of Santa is when Scott, can't blow his cover as Santa because bad things could really happen, and basically we see that he doesn't tell her parents. He makes them think they're in Canada because that's where they think that Scott works, is in Canada. And I think that worked really well. First of all, let's talk about Tim Allen. Tim Allen is still great in this movie, okay? That's one of the reasons why I still really like this movie. If Tim Allen would have given a half-assed job and seemed like he didn't care, no, he still seems like he cares. It seems like everyone in the cast is having as much fun as they did in the first two movies. There's no one in this movie that feels like they're not having fun. Nobody. Everyone feels like they're having a great time making these. Tim Allen seems like he's having a great time, definitely. Yes, and, it was cool to see him, still do his great stuff. And yes, you knew this had to be the final movie because they were definitely running out of ideas. But I still thought for the final movie, Tim Allen did a great job. Martin Short as Jack Frost, I actually think is a very good villain, definitely. Because he has a lot of really good motives, in my opinion. And I think, he actually is a menacing villain. He is legitimately creepy. Which is an improvement, of course, over Santa Claus 2 when they had that stupid villain that I don't even want to talk about. Santa Claus 3 definitely has a much better villain, definitely improves upon that, and that's something I will definitely give the movie credit for, because I think they did a very good job with casting Martin Short. He was creepy, he was funny in some scenes, and I think overall Jack Frost is a good character. Yes, he is annoying at points. Yes, he doesn't need to be in the movie at points, but I still thought for what he did a good job. And Elizabeth Mitchell as Carol, I thought was even better in this movie. It was cool to see in this movie. We haven't really gotten to see Scott and Carol, as Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus, and how they handle that, how they handle keeping their relationship in the North Pole. And it was cool to see Scott kind of struggling with that. Because, I mean, throughout the whole movie, he keeps getting calls about problems with this, problem with this, which concerns our parents. And, definitely concerns our parents and everything. Now, the other thing I do love about this movie is the family reunion. Seeing Neil, Laura, and Lucy go to the North Pole is something that we had to have happen, because Charlie went, therefore Neil, Laura, and Lucy have to go. This is the last one, which you can tell it's going to be. And while it doesn't exactly close the series, I think a lot of people said this movie's unnecessary, but the thing is, if we had closed with the Santa Claus 2, I would not have been satisfied, because it's not a satisfying ending. This actually gave us a very satisfying ending, definitely. But I think bringing Laura, Neil, and Lucy to the North Pole was very funny to see, and Judge Reinhold, this is by far the funniest stuff we have seen from Neil. Neil in this movie is like a little boy when they get to the North Pole. I love how when they get to the North Pole, they just turn into children, and again, it really shows what these movies are trying to show, that we all have that child in all of us, and seeing Neil transform, that really shows how far his character has come, and just the way he reacts to it is hilarious to watch. The way he is so, enthusiastic about the North Pole is so funny. And, of course, he still is a psychiatrist, and we still have that. Wendy Crewson as Laura is also great. They have more to do in this one than they did in the second one. They didn't really have much to do in the second one. Leanna Mummy as Lucy. I don't want to say she's extremely annoying, because I do see the point of her character. But her character annoys me so much in this movie, and is part of the reason why I don't really, and is one of the things that I really do not like about this movie, about this movie, is her character. In the Santa Claus 2, she was a cute little girl who had really good chemistry with Scott, and was just a very cute little girl. In this, they portray her as, the best thing ever. Really, they do. They portray her as the best thing ever in this movie. It's really annoying. Her acting is so over the top and so cheesy. The whole plot of her, giving the warmest hugs ever is ridiculous. The whole plot twist that happens with this, it's so stupid. And what ends up happening to Jack Frost because of that is just so dumb, and the way they do that I thought was just ridiculous. Every time I watch the movie, I hate that part, because it really it ruins the movie, definitely ruins the movie, and I think that Lucy really brought the movie down a lot, and the only reason she was in the movie was because they couldn't focus on Charlie, and that's because Charlie is now an adult, and they're not going to focus as much on Charlie when the plot doesn't center as much around him. Plus, we've seen Charlie in the North Pole, we've seen how he is, now we need to see Lucy in the North Pole, I get that. But when you have Lucy, the whole movie is just being portrayed as the nicest, as the best little girl ever. It's really annoying. Alan Arkin and Anne Margaret as Carol's parents are priceless. They're so funny to watch, especially Alan Arkin. Just his reactions to things. When they find out that Scott is actually part of the North Pole, when he actually finally reveals it to them, it's hilarious to watch. The whole time, they basically think that Scott is not a good person or whatever. I thought their arc was very good, and I really enjoyed their characters. Again, just like the second movie, they really add a lot to this movie, and I thought they did a great job. Spencer Breslin as Curtis is actually a lot more funnier in this movie. I really liked his character in the second one. Bernardo's gone, but Curtis is now the main elf, and I thought he was very good in this movie as well. Now, let's talk about people I have most problems with, which is the directing of this movie by Michael Lembeck. Gotta tell you, the directing is a little bit all over the place, definitely. The directing is very much all over the place. A lot of times, this movie, the problem I have with this movie is that there is too much going on in this movie. Think about it. You have the stuff going on with Jack Frost, and the biggest thing about this movie is that the advertisements for this movie, the trailers, and I think this is why people don't like the movie. The trailers made this movie seem like this was going to be Scott and Jack Frost, basically, Scott having to relive the entire first movie and basically having to relive it in a new life, and that would be the whole movie. Kind of like Back to the Future, sort of. What happens with that? That's what people thought it was going to be. That's what I thought it was going to be. But of course, that's only 12 minutes of this entire movie. I counted how long that is. That segment is 12 minutes long. And it's really disappointing. That's the thing you look forward to the most in this movie. And it really is disappointing. It's really a letdown. Yes, it's really well done, but it's very much a letdown. And I think the directing was definitely all over the place. They did not know the tone they wanted to go in this movie, because this movie goes from sweet to dark like that. This movie has the less heart out of all of them. This movie is a lot darker, it's a lot more mean-spirited, it's a lot more of that stuff, and just, there's a lot of stuff that I don't like about this movie, but the scenes where you do have no Jack Frost, and it's just, Scott trying to make a good impression of Carol's parents are well done. There's an awesome scene where, Scott puts together a toy, in a few seconds. Just scenes like that are awesome to watch. And there are many scenes that, yes, do feel like the first two Santa Claus movies. My problem is any scene that Jack Frost is involved in does not feel like the first two, and it really brings the thing down a lot. I've said it before, this series does not need a villain. It really does not. Yes, Jack Frost would have been a very good villain, but we don't need a villain in this series, okay? I would have wanted this movie to be more about Scott trying to make a good impression of Carol's parents. I think that would have been a good plot, and the whole family reunion thing would have been fine, because the Santa Claus 2 did something very similar to that, and I think that's fine if the movie didn't have too much of a plot, because the last one, you don't need to do too much with it. I think that's fine. It's just a kid's movie. I don't need to have a whole, a huge plot point. The screenplay, as I said, very much all over the place. The cinematography is still very good, especially in the scenes where it goes to 1994 and cuts back. I think those are very well done. The score of this movie, honestly, is annoying. The score is really annoying. That whole la 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 that plays every time in the movie something happy happens. It's so annoying. I didn't like the score at all. And it's really disappointing because I really love this. I love the score in the first movies. The score in this movie is really, really annoying. I don't know what they did, but the score, it got extremely annoying in this movie. And every time the score came out, I'm like, just turn it off. I don't want to hear that a lot anymore. I get it. It's so annoying. The ending of this movie, though, of course, after what happens with Jack Frost, I think is well done. With Scott and Carol having that baby, naming it Buddy Claus. I thought that was overall a good ending to the series. There were plans to do a fourth movie, but the problem was this movie bombed at the box office so much, and everyone hated it, and it got so many Razzies, it got nominated for all these Razzie Awards, that they could not continue. They could not continue this series, and honestly, I'm fine they didn't, because I think this is a good way to end it. You could tell that definitely they're running out of ideas here. You could tell they didn't know what to do anymore, and I think this movie really showed that, and it's good that they stopped at this, because if they would have made a fourth one, it probably would have been one of the worst movies of all time, because this movie is not, I'm gonna say this, movie's not bad, it just has a lot of problems, it's very all over the place, it's very scattered, it does know what it wants to be. It has good acting, especially from, Tim Allen is still great and everything. It has a lot of stuff that I love from the first two that conclude in this movie. It's a good conclusion, but there's a lot of stuff I definitely do not like about this movie, and I would probably give this movie, a C+. If I had to, grade this movie, it'd probably be a C+. This one, I'd give probably a B-. I really love the Santa Claus 2. This, I would probably give a C+. I think probably a C+. I do not really like this movie. I do really like this movie, and I will watch it. I do watch it just as much as the first two, but there's a lot of things I very much dislike about it, and I can definitely see why people don't like it. Do I think it's the worst thing ever? No, I don't. I think it's actually a pretty good movie when you look at it, when you look at other Christmas movies, but compared to the other Santa Claus movies, this is a real letdown, and it definitely is the worst of the series, and it definitely is the worst in the series. It definitely does have a lot of things that I wish they would have changed, and it really had a lot of unnecessary plot points and a lot of unnecessary plot twists and things like that, especially what happened with Jack Frost. When that happened, I was just like, that's so stupid, honestly, things like that. But it does have some good heart in there, it does have some good messages in there, and is a good conclusion to the series. And I do recommend you see Santa Claus 3. Just don't expect too much from it, because it's not going to be as good as the other ones. Also, this is definitely not as funny as the first two. There are some very funny scenes. Probably the funniest scenes in the movie, in my opinion, are the scenes when Neil, Laura, and Lucy are trying to convince Scott to bring them to the North Pole, and also the scene where they end up, Sandman ends up, basically putting to sleep Bud and Sylvia because they're arguing. I thought those were very funny scenes. Also, some scenes of the pole were very funny, but stuff with Jack Frost I thought was funny, but kind of like he didn't really need to be in the movie. I really felt like he did not need to be in this movie. But that's really it for my review of the Escape Clause. Let me know what you guys saw of this movie. And that's the end of this franchise, really. That's the end of this franchise. And let me tell you guys what's going to happen now. Now that I'm done with that franchise, which I left that franchise for last, because that, as I said, is the most nostalgic franchise for me. It's the one I watch the most. But I have 2 movies left now. I have 2 movies left. The first one I'm going to be reviewing in my next video. And then the second one I'll probably review tomorrow. But I have 2 movies left, and then I'm going to be done with Christmas movie reviews. I'm sorry, guys, but those are going to be the last 2, and I'll see you guys for that. And if you guys see my Letterboxd, you already know what they are. But if you haven't, then you don't know. And, of course, Letterboxd review down below. But I'll see you guys in my next video. Okay, bye.